Okay, we are on Facebook Live now, and we are on Congregation Orami Live in a minute. Yes, and we are here. I'm looking at people. Looks good. I'm going to start letting people in. I'm going to let the number first. Hi, whoever is on the phone right now, 661-435, can you identify yourself? Please.
Yes.
Who is it?
This is Robin Harris.
Okay, you're good. Thank you, just for security. Okay, let's start.
That's my mother-in-law. She's my mom.
There you go. We're going to teach her about, okay, let's bring people in slowly but surely, making sure we know. Welcome, everybody. Shavua Tov. May this be the beginning of a really beautiful week.
Welcome everyone for Havdalah. We'll begin in just a couple of moments. Shavua Tov, everyone. We'll begin in just a couple of minutes. Welcome. Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome. We're just letting people in and feeling the good feeling as Shabbat is ending. We're going to do Havdalah and listen to a wonderful speaker. Shema Koleinu Ben Hashuva Ben Hashuva Shema Koleinu Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy. You can sing with me now. Tried and true, with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Let's sing all together. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Sure, let's sing some Hebrew. Pitchuli, Sharet Tzedek, Avovam, Odeya, Pitchuli, Sharet Tzedek, Avovam, Odeya. All right, now three-part harmony. Let me hear you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Shavua Tov. May this be a good week. It's actually still Shabbat until we make Havdalah. But we are thrilled that you are all here with us as we bring Shabbat to a close and begin to talk. The cantor just sang a beautiful song, Lord, prepare me. Pitchuli, open the gates of righteousness for me. Prepare me to be a sanctuary. Shabbat, we're told, is a preparation for Yamei Mashiach, the days of the Messiah, the Messianic days, when we will enjoy peace, an end of war and violence, unfairness, prejudice, persecution, and more. On Shabbat, we're supposed to get a foretaste of what that's like. We are here tonight also to prepare. Our job tonight is to prepare ourselves to be the holy, righteous, justice seekers that God intended us to be. We're here to learn, to listen, and to act. Or Ami is doing that this evening with Shema Kolenu, Hear Our Voices. It's from the High Holy Days when we beseech God, please hear us, hear our voices, and we will return to the path we should be on. Ourselves, our community, our country, our world. Tonight, we're here for a wonderful conversation with a member of our larger community. Rabbi Julia will introduce her in a minute. But on behalf of Cantor Doug, Rabbi Julia, and myself, we welcome you here tonight. This will be a conversation. Rabbi Julia and I will ask questions of our guest, and our guest will answer. If you have questions, you may email them to me at rabbipaul@orami.org. While we may not be able to ask or address those questions because we have a tight program tonight, we will use them as a way to craft future gatherings and opportunities to learn together. You'll also notice that the chat box has been disabled so we can focus our attention on our guests as we move forward. Tonight is about learning, it's about listening. It may also be about being uncomfortable at times. because we've asked our guest, as we're asking ourselves, not to hold back, to teach us, to illuminate for us, so that we can prepare ourselves to be the righteous ones we intend to be. I'd like to invite now one of our rabbinic interns, Melissa Karp, to share an iyun, a teaching about Havdalah. Melissa.
Tonight, as we join together for Havdalah, we mark the separation between this week and the next. The three ritual objects that help us mark this transition: a cup of wine, a container of spices, and a burning candle. These three ritual objects serve to awaken our senses. We are commanded to taste the wine, see the ember of the burning flame, and smell the all too familiar fragrance. Tonight, we called this gathering because as a community, we believe we must continue to awaken our senses, to see the racism that surrounds us. Let us see news story after news story of Black men and women murdered because they are considered expendable. Let us hear George Floyd crying out, "I can't breathe," during the 8 minutes and 46 seconds the police officer had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck. Let us feel the pain and exhaustion of our Black and brown brothers and sisters who have been fighting this fight without our allyship for far too long. Let us smell the putrid smell of pepper spray that entered the ears, nose, and throats of peaceful protesters. And let us taste the sweetness of together as a community, vowing to hear their voices, to lift up our voices, and to speak out against both overt and discreet racism. Tonight, may we continue to separate fear from justice as we make Havdalah as a community.
Thank you, Melissa. Cantor Doug. The Kiddush grape juice.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei beri hagafen borei beri hagafen la 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 la
Sweet smelling spices.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim la 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 la
The bright light of the multi-wicked candle.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei leorei ha'esh borei leorei ha'esh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol.
as we extinguish the candle in the sweetness of the grape juice.
המבדיל בין קודש לחול, אליהו הנביא, אליהו התשבי, אליהו, אליהו, אליהו הגלעדי, במהרה
May it be a Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, a good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase.
Shavua Tov. Just this morning, we read Beha'alotcha, where we read about an event that occurs between Moses, his brother Aaron, and their sister Miriam, and Moses' wife. In this portion, Moses' wife is described as a Cushite, a woman of African descent, a woman of color. In a moment of jealousy, Miriam and Aaron question Moses' authority to be a leader of all the people, since they too had received revelations from God. They question him because he married a Cushite woman, a foreigner. He had intermarried. It is implied here that Miriam and Aaron looked down upon Moses' wife because of the color of her skin. Why do we know this? Our words in Torah are always purposely written and given to us, and the words Cushite, woman, show up twice within one verse. Moses is silent to the jealousy and the judgment of his brother and sister, and God then cries out to all three of them that Aaron and Miriam are to be punished for their behavior. Miriam is stricken with sa'arat, a scaly skin condition. When Moses is finally able to open his mouth, he cries to God, "Please, God, pray heal her." And then there is silence. My friend and colleague, Rabbi Greg Weissman, teaches that this dynamic, this silence, this sickness is reflective of the dynamic, the silence, and the sickness in our community today. He challenges us to see ourselves as Miriam right now. We are infected because we carry generations of systems designed to benefit the white over the black. We are silent to the injustices of our Black and brown brothers and sisters. We are sick and we need to be healed. Instead of crying out, "Oh God, heal her now," we must ask God to heal us. Oh God, heal us now. We cannot wait for God to do this on God's own, though. As partners in God's creation, we need to open our ears to hear the cries of our neighbors of color and listen to their truth. We must build relationships with neighbors and friends of color. We need to stop being satisfied with being not racist and commit to being anti-racist. This is the work that we must do as God's partners, and it starts right now. It is a true honor and privilege to introduce to you Kiyomi Kowalski, who is a Marine Corps veteran who earned her BA in political science at Cal State University, Northridge, and her law degree with public service distinction from Southwestern Law School. She and her partner David have raised their 2 children in the Valley Outreach community for 8 years. Moses, age 5, and he attends Alon Ramon Day School, while Kennedy is age 13 and attends AE Wright. Kiyomi volunteers at various organizations in the community. She's on the board of Valley Outreach and Law Project of Los Angeles, a nonprofit that provides legal advocacy for workers and system-involved youth and families. Kiyomi and I are both mothers at Alon Ramon Day School, where we've met, where my daughter Maddie goes, and as I said before, her son goes. They both went to preschool together. Thank you, Kiyomi, for being with us tonight. Welcome to the Orami family. Again, as I said, I am so honored that you are here. And so we're going to start by asking you a question, as Rabbi Paul had mentioned. My first question to you is, can you tell us a little bit about your experience being a Jew of color in 2020 and your journey towards Judaism itself?
Wow, let's just dive right in, huh? Hello. Hi, all. Thank you for having me tonight. Wow, being a Jew of color. I love being a Jew of color. I love specifically that I am a Jew by choice of color. What I find particularly interesting sometimes is that I'll come to my mahjong table because I love my mahjong. And, I'm with a group of women who, have very different life experiences than myself. And the immediate question from some of them will be, oh, when did you convert? And instead of saying, oh, I converted, I say, why would you assume that? And I say that because I know a lot of Black Jews who were born that way and have always been Jewish. Their parents were Jewish, their mothers were Jewish. And I have noticed that when I am in a room of converts who are not Black, who are white, that question is never asked of anyone but me. And so the premise of that question is, you are clearly an outsider to my eyes. Why, how was your conversion? Or which, look, I'm proud. My namesake I took on as my Hebrew name is Ruth. And I love being a convert, but I hate that is the immediate assumption that I am an outsider. So I deal with that a lot. I don't know if many of you had a chance to see my conversation most recently with my rabbi. It was talking about really seeing race through my son's eyes in the experience of being a Jew of color. He was just a little guy in his, little car seat, and I'm carrying him, very proud, going into our first service together. And a woman remarked, oh, it's very nice that he's not dark, which means not dark like you, right? Which was, I didn't have any words to say to that. But the level of microaggressions that I have every day, and not just in the Jewish community, really every day, it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. I think about the Jewish woman that we selected to be in charge of Moses's birth as my midwife. And I remember remarking, because he had a bit of jaundice, I said, oh, his color's starting to come in. And she said, oh, it's not that bad. Right, like, and I'm so shocked. I don't have any. I shouldn't be shocked because these things happen to me every day. But I am always at a loss for words as to what to say to people who respond to me that way. She is no longer my my midwife, or well, not that I'll need one ever again. But I love this community. I was called to being a Jew because of our mission on this earth to do. We are doers. We don't wait till some other lifetime to do. It's what we do here. It's what we do now that matters. And I feel at home in that. And it is painful sometimes to feel like an outsider in that way.
Thank you. We'd like to ask to jump forward a little bit, or it might be back actually. You served in the United States military as a Marine, and thank you for your service to our country, to uphold our values, to uphold American safety and security. Could you share about your personal experiences in the armed forces, particularly were there experiences of racism there, and how did it impact you then and now as you reflect on it?
I love being a Marine, first of all. I think we're the most awesome service. You have to go into special forces to be badder than we are. So I'm always proud to say I am a Marine. I'm once a Marine, always a Marine. But I came in at the age of 18, and I was not ready for the world. I came in from Southern California, and there were certain things, although I had quite a bit of experience with racism growing up, I was very ignorant to it. I didn't quite understand it until, now looking back. But in the Marine Corps, you come across all these different people, and they're not all from Southern California. They're from the Dakotas, they're from the Alabamas, and I was not quite ready for that. So, I met a lot of people who were flag waving their Confederate flags all the time with the gun racks in the back, and it was a bit of a shock to me, like, oh, but I asked them about it. And I think, look, they have their talking points. It's heritage, it's not hate, and this is our, heritage. And the more I stewed on it, because it was so in my face all the time, the more confrontational I became about it. I tell the story, not particularly proud, but I have had to bloody a couple noses in my day by people just flagrantly using the N-word towards me or around me, just very rudely. But I can't say that I hated anyone there. I think back on my days in the Marine Corps, and I kind of wish for them again. Once I started opening books and once I started opening my eyes, all of these things became more clear to me than they were at the time. And kind of thank goodness, I only had a bloody 2 noses. But if I had been less ignorant at the time, I think I would have been in a fight every day. Because with the sexism and the racism, that the intersection of who I am is at the forefront of many people's minds, unfortunately. And I had to face that quite a bit. And in the Marine Corps, as you know, more so than any other armed service, there's about 1 woman for maybe every 100 or so, maybe 200 men. There are no women in the Marine Corps, not very many. So, when I'm in a battalion with, 500 people, there'll be 10 women, or more, or a bit less. So yeah, it was a culture shock in many ways. But I look back on those times fondly because I actually miss not wanting to fight all the time. I embraced my ignorance at that time. Things are quite different these days.
Thank you. Not necessarily a follow-up question, but thinking a little bit about the fighting that you must have to do or that you are projecting you may have to do, hopefully not. But, I feel like the talk has become really popular. So whether you've read Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between a Wool and Me, or at least just even heard just in our society, people are talking about the worry and the pain of a parent raising Black sons especially. And what is this talk to you? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that, especially because you have two sons? And what can we learn from the discussions you've had or you're planning on having with them?
So Moses is a little guy, so I haven't quite had to have the talk with him just yet. I had to have the talk with Kennedy a bit faster than I actually anticipated. I probably should have had it a bit sooner, I guess. Just recently, it happened. The talk is, so if you say this in our community, we know what the talk is. And the talk is basically come home. If you come into contact with the police, your first duty is to get home to us. So do whatever it takes to make sure that you survive that contact and come home. So recently, Kennedy was skateboarding with some friends at the Starbucks parking lot on Agora and Las Virgenes. And I was coming to pick him up after school, and I swung by, grabbed him, and I said, hey, you're not supposed to be skateboarding in public property here, or actually private property in that case. And I was just like, this is not cool. oh yeah, well, that's why we moved to the back to skateboard. I'm like, wait, what? Wait a second. You guys didn't think to move to the back yourself. What happened? And he says, well, the police came to me and I almost jerked my car, driving. And I said, they what? And he says, oh, they came to me, to us and told us not to skateboard. So we went to the back instead. I'm like, wait a second. So a police officer told you not to skateboard there, but you went ahead and went to the back to skateboard as if that was okay. And I guess the police came up to them a second time to tell them to move on. And Kennedy said, but don't worry, I ran away. And I said, look, I think a lot of kids are, a lot of white kids are afforded the latitude of stupidity, right? You're allowed to be, to do stupid things as a kid. But when an officer comes into a situation, and especially with a young Black boy, I am immediately in fear because that officer comes with himself, his biases, and a weapon. And then he comes with, often him or he or she comes with their sidekick with their weapon and their biases into any situation. And while I know it's not protocol that police are to shoot people in the back, that doesn't say that it doesn't happen. I know this is still being investigated today, but in Atlanta, we just had a situation already, on the heels of all of this. It was devastating for me. And I cried quite a bit, just worried about his safety in this predominantly white community. And I have to say to my son, listen to me, your friends will skate on home to their families at night, but you will be the one lying there if this interaction goes awry. And you need to be more thoughtful, more careful. Do not run. That is like the worst thing that you can do. So yeah, the talk is critical, and clearly I needed to have it with him before he turned 13. But I thought, hey, he's become a bar mitzvah. He's a man. He's not a man.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. The fear most parents, all parents have for their kids is real as they grow up. The worry that you described there, and we've heard others describe, is of as we say in Hebrew, mashu acher legamre, something completely different, more intense, and happens here. We just heard in the last month, a Saturday Night Live comedian who lives in the Tarzana area. I forget his name. Farrow.
Yeah, I just saw his video. Yeah. His last name is Farrow. Yes.
Farrow.
Jay Farrow.
Jay Farrow. This is a famous actor that I don't remember his name. I know his put him his face. Was in Tarzana, not a mile, 2 miles from where I live. This is a guy who's famous, who's known, and that shouldn't be enough. But he was stopped. He was put down on the ground. He had someone's knee on his neck. And then they found the guy they were looking for, and he got away. But he had 4 cops, guns drawn, in our area. It's interesting, sad, terrifying, but interesting. Most of us in this Zoom gathering have a good radar about anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic tropes. That we can, when people say things that are code for anti-Semitism, because we're Jews and have grown up with it or have an awareness of it, we get it, we see it very quickly. But many of us, most of us, even I, do not have an awareness of that in terms of racism. Few of us want to think of ourselves as racist, yet we are learning, I'm learning, that I and we have implicit biases. What have you learned about implicit bias? What have you seen, experienced, felt in terms of racism, in terms of things that we are missing? People like the wonderful people gathered on this call.
Yeah, I get into this conversation a lot, and I have found myself trying to figure out how to continue to be heard in the conversation, because as soon as the word racist comes to my mind or to anyone else's mind or out of anyone else's mouth, it kind of is the stop to the conversation with a white person, and it's a trigger for self-defense, and anger and embarrassment or guilt or whatever comes up first I want to start by saying is, look, I think a lot of us think of ourselves as not racist because we don't burn crosses or we don't go to KKK rallies. And I have to say that we all know these people, right? The white nationalists and stuff, and there are very few of them technically, right, in number, but that's not who's perpetuating racism, right? What's perpetuating racism is people who look at a job application and say, that name looks a little too ethnic, and that's a code for that person is not qualified because they are Black, right? I have seen it, I have heard it. I know of a lawyer, one of my closest friends is an attorney, and she changed her name to sound less ethnic just for that purpose. And it's a sad state of affairs that we live in that. So the buzzwords and the buzz conversations are usually, well, I don't see color. And to me, that tells me immediately that we're gonna have trouble because we are not talking on the same basis, because being colorblind, while it sounds amazing, nobody technically is. And the world is putting in information in your head, whether you want it to or not. Unfortunately, when you think peanut butter, you think jelly. When you think Black man, you think danger, right? And it's not just you. And so that's the thing, is that I'm not pointing all fingers at every person, every white person saying, it's you, it's you. A Black woman will cross the street at the same rate as a white woman will, or clutch their purse at the same rate as, because, and this is, there is statistical evidence to show all of this, because it's embedded in our brains, this danger. So when you tell me that you are colorblind, that tells me that you are not gaining the skills to filter out the nonsense that's constantly bombarding your brain. So that tells me that you are certainly part of the problem. I think people need to understand that when that's said, it's saying, I don't see you and I don't see your whole story. And inevitably, right after that is said, I will say to a person, well, this is my experience. And they will tell me a reason why my experience was not racism. I guarantee 100% of the time. And I'll say, okay, see, this is what I'm talking about. You're not seeing me. You're not getting me. And I think we don't have the luxury of not seeing race. I have to, because I have to discuss that with my kids to make sure that they're not perpetuating the things that that the world is constantly sending into them from the media. A lot of it's media, a lot of it's, and then it comes out on the schoolyard. We just had an incident with 2 girls from Calabasas High School who thought it was really funny to send around a viral video dancing to the use of the N-word. In this particular community, we are quite segregated, and we have to be very intentional about our lessons around race, because it's not going to happen by happenstance. Unfortunately, there are tons of reasons, socioeconomic, why there aren't a bunch of Black people in this neighborhood, okay? But we can go really far back on that. I could take you there, but we don't really have time. But the point is, we have to be really intentional and really thoughtful about bringing race and making it an intentional conversation in our community. because we won't get it otherwise. Our kids won't learn otherwise. And we're going to send kids into a world with all of that ignorance if we have not given them the tools to filter out the nonsense.
Wow. Thanks, Kiyomi. How do you feel the pandemic has contributed or taken away from this current movement of sort of like the Black Lives Matter? And what is your fear once shelter in place is over and things go back to normal?
Oddly enough, pandemic, so, every 100 years, I guess we go through this. This has actually been the biggest blessing for the Black Lives Matter movement. I will not say for Black lives. So I'll treat this question in 2 points. So the Black Lives Matter movement, I think what we are finding right now, and we're talking amongst each other with our secret handshakes. No, that doesn't happen. We're talking in the community about people finally listening, right? Because people are on a job, they're sitting at home, and the last time a Black man got shot, they didn't have the time to read these articles, but they put them in their bookmark. I got to read that one day. And then it just becomes a thing that doesn't ever get read or done or whatever. But now we got a captive audience. People are saying, oh, let me open that bookmark. I've always wanted to read that. That is a thing. And, people are really having the time to invest in their own education on this issue. And that has been a big turning point. What I'm noticing, and what a lot of us are noticing, are white people mobilize. When you go to Iowa and you've got a sea of white people claiming Black Lives Matter and proclaiming it loudly and saying it proudly, something's changed. Because usually it's us organizing these things, and usually it's us doing the conversations. But now we're seeing, and this is something that we've always wanted, is for white people to talk to each other. It's critical that you talk to, we can't dismantle a system we did not put together. So it is critical that white people actually take the lead here. And what we're seeing is that the lead is being taken by a lot of people who are finally able to invest the time in it. So that's what's happened with Black Lives Matter. But what's happening with Black lives in this pandemic? Black lives are, we are dying at a faster rate from pre-existing conditions because of a lack of access to healthcare. We are dying because we are your frontline workers. We are the people who knock on your door to bring your groceries. We are the people who are dropping off your packages. We are the people who are putting our lives on the line and at risk every day so that this country can continue to run. Yet we are dying from this disease at alarmingly higher rates than our white counterparts of the same socioeconomic status.
Thank you. Powerful. I've been watching the numbers coming out of the LA County Department of Health, and it is horrifying, the numbers as they divide it by different groups. This morning or last night, before I went to sleep, I saw something that came out of our national reform movement, and I want to share it with people. It's a statement from the reform movement. It is signed by every organization, every arm in the reform movement, from the National Reform Movement to the Central Conference of American Rabbis, our rabbis, the American Conference of Cantors, signed by NIFTY, the North American Federation of Temple Youth, by our educators, by our Religious Action Center, by our women, the Women's Rabbinic Network, the World Union of Progressive Judaism. I've missed some, the Association of Reform Zionists of America, temple administrators, retired reform rabbis. Every arm shared this, and I'm only going to read it in part. But it's a statement from the reform movement. Black Lives Matter is a Jewish value. It says, throughout the past 400 years, Black people in America have been enslaved, subjugated, disenfranchised, murdered, and discriminated against. From generation to generation, white Americans, including white Jews, have failed to own and end the systematic racial injustices on which the nation was founded, and instead have actively or passively perpetuated these injustices. Jewish tradition is replete with instances of moral reckoning when we are asked to be present and accounted for. Ayeka, we are asked, where are you? We respond full-throatedly, Hinenu, we are here. As Reformed Jews, it continues, committed to the spirit of this teaching, we say unequivocally, Black Lives Matter. To affirm that Black Lives Matter is to commit to a human and civil rights movement working to end systemic racism against Black people and white supremacy. To affirm that Black Lives Matter is to recognize that we are a racially diverse Reformed Jewish movement and that our diversity is a source of our strength. It continues, there are many parts, but it's important to mention to affirm Black Lives Matter is to recognize the imperative to live with complexity and know that we can be steadfast in our love of and support of Israel while working side by side with those who hold differing views and express them respectfully. It concludes, to affirm that Black Lives Matter is for white Jews to reflect on their own thoughts and behavior, to build meaningful relationships with Jews of color and people of color generally, and to work for reforms that will achieve real lived freedom for Black people. We affirm that Black Lives Matter. I read this because it is uncompromising, it is clear, it is strong. There is no question about where we would stand and where we would like our actions, our synagogues, our members to be. So my question, Ibram X. Kendi, in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, urges us to move from people to policy, to recognize that we shouldn't be thinking, worrying, or get lost in the conversation about, is this person racist or not? But to look instead at racist policies that create a system. Do you have any reflections either on the statement I just read or on this idea by Mr. Kendi, or anything else you want to talk about?
First of all, I love that statement. It was unequivocal. I love anything that unequivocally affirms that Black Lives Matter, and that does not mean all lives don't matter. There are plenty of reasons why that is a thing. It's our house that's on fire. We wouldn't come to a street and say, oh, but your house is on fire, but we're gonna hose down these other houses, right? But you'll say, my house is on fire. No, or come to your grandpa's funeral and bring a picture of our grandpa and say, but all grandpas matter. No, our house is on fire. Black Lives Matter, right? I love that it's unequivocal. I love that it calls a thing and doesn't try to escape saying what specifically it meant. Incredible. So I love Kendi and I love his work. I work it in both directions. I think the most important thing is to dismantle white supremacy and dismantle the systems of racism. That's how we're going to get anywhere. And there were systems that put this in place. It's very intentionally built this way. This system is technically working as designed. So yes, 100%, 125%, but we also need to be calling out our racist uncles at the table, right? Like, we need to be letting people know, and because everyone has a racist uncle. I always use that example because you know who I'm talking about. We need to also not accept it in our own lives and our own homes and at our own tables. And it's not to say that we want you to kick out or disown or whatever, but engage with these people who say things that are problematic and that perpetuate this disease that we have as a country. So we work on it one-on-one, most certainly, and it's critical that we dismantle the system with policy. So I don't know why we can't do both at once. Certainly the system needs to be broken down, but both and.
So, Kiyomi.
Rookie move, Rabbi.
I didn't unmute. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to thank you. We are here beginning the process of hearing and hearing the voices as you are helping us do. So as a final question, are there any suggestions on how we keep the momentum going? How we continue to do what we're doing, and other ideas in which we can kind of dive in and help?
I do. I have tons of ideas, but I will say this. There was a day when our faith communities were our sources of political power. And look, I don't, and when I say political power, I don't mean Democrat, Republican, all of that nonsense. I mean, when we see a wrong, we pinpoint it and we discard it or work to dismantle it, right? I want to see more of that in our synagogues. You know, there's a lot of political issues that keep us from speaking out and being on the forefront of these issues, but they don't have to be. This is a decency issue. There's no politics around it. And we need to be unafraid and unapologetic about our stances on systemic racism and dismantling racism in this country. Look, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but we have to keep up the fight. It is not our job to, and you know, this is, you probably have a better quote than me on this, but Jewishly, it is not our job to finish it, but we have to start. And I want to see more synagogues, even my own. We just launched a anti-racism task force within our synagogue, and we're going hard on it. We've got a lot of resources out there. I suggest that people who are white, listen, we want you to, we want your friendship. We want you to come in. Don't be upset if it's not, hey, can we get you some cookies and can we fluff up your pillows? Because I love this analogy. It was, if you walked in late to a college course, would you announce why you're late and shut down the whole class and expect the teacher to explain and go back and no, you wouldn't do that. You would sit down and listen and try to figure out and catch up on somebody's notes. I say Google a few things. Definitely, there is so much information out there right now. Open a few books and then you'll open the next book because you'll realize, oh, there's this other thing. It's such a dense topic. And then you'll start realizing, wow, okay, this is my country, right? Because we have this myth, right? And it's the American myth, and we were all taught it. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, blah, blah, blah. There is a true story behind this myth, and we can break it down and figure it out. And once we do that, as a community, as a synagogue, at our Thanksgiving and Passover tables, we will be all the better for it.
Amazing. I could listen to you forever. You're
very kind.
You're awesome.
My partner, he's like, oh, can she just stop? Oh, this again?
This is not the first time I've called you my rabbi, because you are a teacher, and I feel really blessed to have you teaching me all the time, and also teaching our community as well. So I guess just to, again, to wrap up, is there anything else that you would like us to know or like to tell us as we kind of conclude the evening? You don't have to, just if you'd like to.
Yeah, no, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to this community. I know that these are hard conversations, and I know that everyone's kind of like sweating and they're wondering, is it me? It's you, but that's okay. Join us. Like, you don't have to be shy. Nobody's mad at you, but we want you to do the work. We need you to do the work. As minorities, we are not the majority, so we need you just sheerly for the numbers alone, right? So help us, and thank you.
Thank you so much. These words, your teaching has been powerful for us. We are on a journey. Many people are farther along, some are just starting. All of us recognize that individually and as a community, we have a lot of work to do. So I want to thank you tremendously for helping us. We are here
Thank you.
today. You're welcome. We are here today because Torah teaches us that we are all created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. That means we are endowed with deep value, blessed uniqueness, and unquestionable equity. That means, yes, Black Lives Matter. That means, yes, we have a responsibility to make sure that even if we have disagreements with a movement on an issue as dear even as Israel, that we bracket that and we work on the other issues together. And in conversation, we move it forward. So I want to let all our people who are listening here on Zoom, those on Facebook Live, Congregation Orami, those watching on oramilive.com. I want to thank you all for taking the time on this Saturday evening to end Shabbat and learn with us here. I also want to let you know that Orami is starting a new webpage, orami.org/anti-racism, ANTI racism, one word. It includes something Rabbi Julia and her team put together, resources for talking to kids and teens about racism. It includes a letter that helps direct you to thinking deeply. It will include more resources as we finalize the next one. But I want to invite everybody to read. We read because it opens our mind. We are people of the book. And when we read, it pushes us in directions to think. There are all sorts of books out there to help us expand. But this suggestion is one that Rabbi Julia and I are reading, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Now look, it's not an intro book. It's not a sweet book, though there are heartwarming moments. It is a difficult book. As I've been reading it, I read a little, I pause, I go back and read again, I highlight and keep going. And then I come back to it. It is pushing me, it's making me think. There are things that make me uncomfortable. There are things I don't like. There are things I think I disagree with, but I'm opening and breathing through it and having conversations. I invite all of you in the congregation to get the book. There's an interesting thing. Books that people should be reading now are hard to get in any bookstores because so many people, white people particularly, are getting them. Yes.
There are plenty of Black bookstores in LA. I have an entire list, and they are only populated with Black bookstores in Los Angeles. And I will send that to Rabbi Julia, and she will connect you with it. And they are still in stock in many of those stores.
Fantastic. Thank you. I was actually about to mention that, so you beat me to it. We'll get it up on the orami.org/anti-racism. But that book particularly, we invite people to get, to start reading, and to Rabbi Julia and I will announce a discussion on that that will happen in mid-July, date to be determined. Finally, let's just continue learning. Shema Kolenu, Hear Our Voices, is about hearing the voices of our own community, the Jewish community, the Southern California community, the American community, the world community. Folks, it's clear. Moses did not look like me. Jesus did not look like me. They were of darker skin. What's important were their ideas. Let's remember that. Let's interrogate our own ideas. Let's be open. It's uncomfortable, but we'll work forward. And let's do one more thing. There are people who don't want these conversations to happen. And I assure you, I will hear from them. Rabbi Julia Cantor-Doug will hear from them. If these are the conversations you want, please make sure I hear from you. Not a text, but take time to write me an email so that I can show people want to hear this and talk about this, because Judaism tells us this is the direction to go. So we're going to conclude the way we conclude all events at Congregation Orami with Hashkivenu, a prayer in which we ask that the Holy One shelter us beneath God's Sukkot Shalom, God's shelter of peace, asking the source of hope to guard us from all harmful things. When we say guard us, it's me and you, Kiyomi, the whole community, the whole world. Wouldn't it be wonderful if that prayer were just empty words, because that was happening day after day, night after night. I'll put up the words. Let's sing together.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom, L'ha'aminenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Fros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning light. Teach us daily wrong from right. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. Congregation Orami, your light shines brightly tonight. Let's keep shining the light on these challenging parts of our world so that the light of Torah guides us forward. Thank you, Kiyomi. Thank you, Cantor Kotler, Cantor Doug. Thank you, Melissa and Anna, our rabbinic interns, Rabbi Julia. Thank you for guiding us in all of this. Thank you all for being here. We'll be ending the conversation now and continuing it going forward. Shavua Tov, a good week.